Welcome to Gaia's Calling, where stories ignite your spirit and the earth whispers her secrets. I'm Brad Swift, a write-on-purpose author of eco-fiction and nonfiction, inviting you to become an eco-guardian. Together, let's explore the wonders of our world and take action to protect them. Listen closely, Gaia is calling. And today, the calling from Gaia is the Great Unraveling and the Great Awakening. We are living during a collapse of the old world, and that's a good thing. You know, we are shaped by the stories that we believe. They influence how we see ourselves, how we treat each other, and how we relate to the earth. Stories can be invisible cages, reinforcing the great untruths and keeping us trapped within cycles of separation, scarcity, and struggle. But stories can also be keys, opening doors to the new ways of being, thinking, and acting in our daily lives. Right now, humanity is at a crossroads. We can keep telling the same old divisive stories that we are separate from nature and from each other, that competition is the only way to survive, that growth must be endless, and that technology will save us. Or we can write new ones. So let's look at the wounds of the old stories. Before we move forward, we need to acknowledge the harm of the old narratives, not as a way of getting stuck in blame, but as a way of understanding what needs to heal. Think about the most damaging stories that have been embedded in our world, such as nature is something to conquer, not something we belong to. Or progress means taking more, growing more, having more, no matter the cost. Or there is not enough for everyone, so we must compete and hoard resources. Or technology will eventually fix everything, so we don't have to change how we live. These stories have justified deforestation, overconsumption, inequality, and environmental destruction. They have divided us from the earth and from each other, convincing us that survival means domination rather than collaboration. But here's the truth. We are not bound by these stories. Now, new stories are emerging. All over the world, people are telling different stories. Stories that bring people together instead of dividing them. Stories of regeneration, reciprocity, and radical possibility. Since the idea to start this One Cause series back in, I guess it was late November of 2024, I've been so inspired to learn that there are many other people ready to create a new paradigm of possibilities, even as the old dysfunctional ones continue its death throes. Here are some examples of the new stories. Stories number 1. Indigenous land stewardship revitalized. Across North America and other countries, indigenous nations are reclaiming their ancestral lands, not just as political act, but as a return to a different story about humanity's role. Check out the hashtag #LandBack. From the Yurok tribe's restoration to the Klamath River to Australia's Aboriginal fire management practices, these communities are proving what happens when we live by reciprocity rather than extraction. How about story number 2? The end of the infinite growth economy. For centuries, the gross domestic product, that's GDP, which is the total value of all goods and services produced in the country during a specific period of time, this growth story has driven our economies at the cost of human and ecological well-being. But today, donut economics and post-growth movements are rewriting that stories. Cities like Amsterdam and Brussels are embedding these ideas into policy, proving that thriving doesn't require endless expansion. Or how about story number 3? The youth who refuse to play by the old rules. From climate strikes to mutual aid networks, young people today are rejecting the narrative that their future is already doomed. Instead of falling into despair, they are creating new ways to live, learn, and recognize and organize, embracing values of sustainability, equity, and collective care. These stories disrupt the Great Untruths and lay the groundwork for a new paradigm, the Great Truths. So how do we become storytellers of a new world? If old stories have shaped the world we have now, then new stories must shape what comes next. But what does it take to create those stories? Well, first, what if we recognize our role as co-creators? Stories don't come from nowhere. They come from what we say and what we do and what we choose to believe. And second, we must practice telling different stories. What happens when we start saying and acting accordingly? We are part of nature, not separate from it. And sufficiency is possible when we share wisely. And we can give back as much as we take. And humanity's role is not to dominate the earth, but to be stewards of it. And third, we must then embody these stories. A story only becomes real when we, the people, live it. Imagine waking up in a world where these truths are already shaped society. What would it feel like? What would it sound like? What choices would we make differently? Well, we are about to step into that vision, into the 4 great truths. But first, we must say yes to the invitation to leave the old stories behind. So, what's next? The sacred blueprint. We have spent time unpacking the 4 great untruths, the stories that have divided us, separated us from the earth, and led to crisis after crisis. And now, we can begin a new leg of the journey. The 4 great truths, not just as ideas, but as the foundation for a thriving world. A sacred blueprint for how we move forward. A vision so clear and compelling that we can already feel it calling us forward. In the next installment, we'll step fully into that vision, not just by describing it, but by beginning to experiencing it together. The story of separation is ending. The story of reconnection, regeneration, and joy is already underway. Are you ready to step into it? I'll answer that for myself. Absolutely! This transition from the great 4 untruths to the 4 great truths is not just an intellectual shift. It's a seismic transformation in the way we live, think, and relate to one another and the earth. And with any transformation, there is resistance, uncertainty, and discomfort, as we have all been feeling it so much here lately. The birth pains of a new story. As we stand at this crossroads, we are experiencing the clash of 2 realities. The old paradigm, built on separation, endless consumption, and the illusion of control. And it's desperate to maintain its grip. Leaders like Trump and others who benefit from the systems of domination and division are doing everything they can to keep the old stories alive. Why? Well, because the old system serves them, and because it's familiar. Because they fear losing power in a world that values equality, sustainability, and interconnection. But here's the truth. We are watching a dying paradigm fight to survive. And when old systems crumble, they don't go quietly. They lash out. They try to convince us that this is the only way. But they are not. The contrast we are seeing, the chaos, the corruption, the fear-mongering, isn't proof that change is impossible. It's proof that change is already happening. If the four great untruths were unshakable, there wouldn't be such a fight to uphold them. The cracks in the old world are widening, and through them, light is shining in. So how do we hold steady in this time of contrast? In moments of uncertainty, it's natural to feel doubt, exhaustion, and even hopelessness. But let's take a breath and remember, this is part of the process. Every great transformation, personal, societal, planetary, comes with resistance. That resistance is not proof of failure, but a sign that something new is emerging. As I learned many years ago, this is what life looks like when it's working. You are not alone. Millions of people around the world are waking up, questioning the old narratives, and choosing to live by new ones. We are part of something much larger than ourselves. We can choose where to focus. The old world thrives on fear and distraction. The new world thrives on vision and action. Every day, we get to choose. Do we give our energy to what is breaking apart or to what is being built? The new story, it's already here. We're not waiting for permission to live by the four great truths. We are already doing it. Every act of kindness, every moment of stewardship, every connection we make is part of the shift. My family and I are stumbling along this path in what we call our loving homestead experiment. More about this as we continue this journey with you. So this new reality is calling, and we are answering. The turmoil of today does not define the future. We do. The contrast we are experiencing is the last desperate grasp of a failing system, not a prophecy of doom. The next chapter of humanity is being written right now by those of us who refuse to accept the great untruths as our destiny. So, if you feel the weight of the world, take heart. We are in the labor pains of something beautiful. This is not the end. It is the beginning of something extraordinary. And you, dear readers, are part of it. Let's hold steady. Let's hold the vision. Let's write the future together. And you know, I really want to hear from you. While I realize that being a writer is often a lonely calling with a lot of solitude, I really do love hearing from you, my readers. It's for you that I awake each day with an intention to make a difference in your life. And yes, I know, we are all busy. Even so, how about leaving a comment below? What one idea of today's article resonated with you the strongest? What one action will you take today in being more connected to nature and each other? Leave me a comment. Message me at the links that are on the Substack page. And while you're on a roll, how about sharing today's post with someone you love? Again, links are available on the Substack page. Until next time, keep loving your family and loving life. Take care.